In this video, I'm going to show you how mobility training can help runners in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond keep running for years without the constant aches, stiff joints, or injuries that force many runners to stop. If you want to keep running, even marathons, as you get older, this is one of the most important things you can add to your training. So runners often ignore mobility until problems start. Right? Many runners skip mobility entirely or only do quick 30-second stretches. Over time, the joints and tissues become stiff without them even realizing it, right? Runners start feeling constant tightness in their hips, back, knees, or ankles. Long runs become harder, right? Hitting the wall around mile 18, 20, and many assume it's just nutrition or getting older, when mobility is often the real issue. I've noticed this myself as I got older. When I was in my 20s, I was like, oh, easy. I could just go for a run without, worrying about my mobility, right? Without warming up the joints or anything like that, or doing a cool down. I'm like, no problem. But as I got into the 30s, and I'm almost approaching 40 myself, I'm 38 years old at the moment. I know if I don't do my mobility work, my back starts to hurt, my knees start to hurt. I'm like, man, I'm feeling like an old man. I'm like, what is happening? And even though my job is fairly active, I'm a physical therapist by trade. Sometimes I have to sit down, write notes and things, and just sitting for a few hours, I get up like, oh, there goes the back, there goes my neck, there goes my hip, just from sitting. And so many people don't realize the impact their lifestyle is making on their health, and then ignoring mobility is a big thing, and thinking, oh, I'm just going to do a quick 30-second warm-up is going to be enough, but it's not. It's really not enough to make a big dent. You think 30 seconds is going to make up for, 8 hours of you sitting at a desk or standing around, being sedentary fairly. I know many runners who take it up as an adults are doing as weekend warriors, right? Maybe they'll run on the weekends, whatever. Or even if you run more often than that, it's still not enough to actually make you mobile, right? Running only is one-dimensional. It's only training on one plane. It's not actually getting you full mobility throughout all the joints, right? Running is not a sport like dancing that requires high levels of mobility. And it's both a curse and a blessing, because you're like thinking, okay, I don't have to be, yes, you don't have to be a ballerina flexible to enjoy running. But if you just completely ignore mobility, because then the pendulum swims the other way, where you ignore it completely, that becomes a problem too, where you start then developing the stiffness, becomes aches and pains. Now you start getting knee pain or hip pain. Then you really have to stop running, because this stiffness become a full-blown injury. And if you want a copy of this Google Doc and to learn more about running as you get older without aches and pains, I'm sharing in my free online run group. Click the link in the description to join. So how improve the mobility for running? First, identify the tight areas, because a lot of people are just not aware of where they're tight or where they're limited. You can use simple mobility tests, right? The squat test, the toe touch test, the ankle test, hip flexor test, to really see where your tight areas are. Because you want to know where you're targeting. Otherwise, you might be doing a hodgepodge of random things and not even realizing, hey, you might be wasting your time on things that don't need to be mobilize. Like, hey, maybe you already have like full mobility in a different joint, right? So you don't have to spend so much time on the joints that already are mobile, right? You want to focus on the most restricted areas, restricted joints, instead of stretching everything randomly. And then you perform targeted mobility drills. Once you identify what's actually tight for your ankle hips, and it's not just 30 seconds, right? We're talking about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, even 5 minutes. And sometimes it may be 10 minutes or even 20 minutes, right? I know that might be a lot, but at the very least, 3 minutes per tight area. So if you have 2 tight areas, now you're looking at, close to 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You get the idea. And you want to stay consistent for daily. It's like brushing your teeth. Mobility is not something you just do once a week. No, it should be daily. Now, you don't have to do hour-long mobility routines, but at least, 5 minutes, 10 minutes daily on a daily basis, whether you're doing morning, evening, or both, for about 6 weeks. And then you want to continue it, obviously, after the 6 weeks. You don't just want to hit the 6 weeks and stop altogether, but you want to maintain that mobility practice. But, you'll see those gains in the 6 weeks, so you don't get discouraged, because you might go week 1, week 2. Why am I not getting any more mobile? I'm doing the mobility training. But no, you have to give your body time to adapt. And usually you'll start seeing these big changes at week 6. Some people may see it at week 4, but more often week 6, week 8, week 12, and so forth. Right. But it stay consistent, commit to the process. So some of the tests to look, right? We got the knee to wall test to look at ankle dorsiflexion mobility. There's also then a position you could use to work on your ankle dorsiflexion mobility. Half kneeling. There's different variations to dorsiflexion mobility exercise, but this is a popular, both a test and a stretch I like to do. The deep squat test, you could obviously see how deep you can do your squat. If you're limited, maybe it's either issue at your thoracic spine, at your hip joint, or at your ankle joint. Even sometimes the knee could be limited as well, because to do a deep squat, you need like triple flexion, hip flexion, knee flexion, ankle dorsiflexion, right? And then it can even be an issue with core strength. Sometimes strength is a component in mobility as well. So you also need to make sure you're doing the strength training. So I didn't mention that here, but strength training should also be done 2 or 3 times a week. Make sure your body is strong. I like the big fan of full body routines, and the core is also very important to also allow you to do a deep squat with, you see how the picture here, the model's almost doing more like an upright torso or trunk. Another test is the toe touch test. Can you touch your fingertips to toes? This is a good test of like hamstring flexibility, but also lower back mobility. If you can't do that, obviously you could do drills to improve your lumbar flexion. Then there's also lumbar extension, the prone press up. This is both a test, but also you can do this as an exercise. A lot of desk workers can benefit from this kind of thing. Then there's thoracic extension. You could do this in a chair. There's different variations. You could work on thoracic extension. I found was a big help in helping improve breathing as well. When I started working on thoracic extension, my kind of airway opened up, my lungs opened up, and it was much more enjoyable to go for runs. Right. Not pictured here is also hip extension. You could go into a half kneeling, kind of similar to the dorsiflexion test, except you're in a tall half kneeling. You're shifting your weights forward to see which you compare left to right side, right, to see how your hips feel and see if you're limited in hip extension or the psoas muscle flexibility. So then you can work on hip extension mobility as well. Also very important. Again, your tight areas may differ. That's why it's important to test. But then once you identify them, then you work on them and you start correcting them. So what happened after you start improving mobility? Right. For myself, I noticed that my long runs felt smoother without my legs locking up or stiffening up late in the run. Right. I could hit mile 18 to mile 20 and feel, fine. My legs aren't stiffening up. Maybe I'm getting a little tired or maybe I need a little bit more fuel, but I wasn't like locking up because all my joints started getting rigid. Recovery between runs improved significantly. Many runners I worked with, got rid of their pain altogether. A lot of times people who are feeling knee pain or hip pain, it's a mobility issue, and we work together. Their pain's dramatically alleviated just doing the proper mobility exercise. And then these nagging aches and pains start to lessen over time. And many of them are then able to enjoy running without always being with achy or stiff joints all the time or painful areas. They notice that the improved mobility in their hip or the ankle improves their running efficiency, so running feels easier. And running starts to feel lighter, more fluid. It's more enjoyable. They could have fun and go for a run. Like, I could see how you can now finish, a half marathon or a marathon and have like a smile on your face and not be like, feeling like deaf or like someone hit you in the leg with a baseball bat. So I currently have 2 spots open to work with me privately one-to-one to start running faster for longer as you get older without, aching or feeling pains. If you're curious, there's a link to a plan description. First come, first serve. So key lessons about mobility for runners. Mobility training is essential, especially as you get older, going into your over 40, beyond 50, 60s, if you want longevity in the sport. Effective mobility requires more than quick stretches. Aim for 2 to 3 minutes per area. Daily consistency matters more than occasional long stretch sessions. Desk jobs and sitting all day makes mobility work even more important. So stay consistent for about 6 weeks and you'll start noticing real improvements in how you run.